Hi, Islam Debate. Brian from a nondescript little city in the southwestern part of the United States, otherwise known as Stronzo 5785. Getting back to you on your points, you took a great deal of time, first minute and a half, over a minute and a half of your statement, turning a misstatement that I made into a global expression of my position. You couldn't be further from the truth. Um, Jesus' purpose for coming on earth, for coming to this planet, is to restore relationship between God and man. This relationship was broken during the by it was broken by Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve deliberately, by choice, by the free will given to them by their Creator, they exercised that free will and disobeyed God, assuming that they could become as gods. Go look it up. Um, to go further with your point and to expand it into something that it wasn't meant to be, you pointed out that the Pharisees were righteous because they were doing the will of God. Quote, following my logic, a logic created by yourself. Um, you forget the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul was a Pharisee, and indeed during the time that he was converted, during his conversion experience, he was on a mission to go hunt down and kill Christians in Damascus. Um, if that were the case, why would God need to so intervene in the life of a man who is ostensibly doing his will? Following your logic, doesn't hold up. Quranic Islamic free will, notions of Islamic free will are different than Christian free will. You need to explore that. You did state that the Prophet Muhammad provided us one interpretation. I count in Sunni Muslim thought alone six different hadiths. In Shia, there are four different hadiths, and the Sufis, frankly, don't go for any of those. If your faith is so monolithic, why the fracturing of the hadiths? Tafsir is not a hadith. You do specifically state that, and that's a gross misrepresentation of your own faith. Orthodox Christianity agrees on certain essentials. There are poetic verses in the Bible that are open to interpretation, poetic interpretation, but from the context, which you say I'm using as an excuse, it can easily be understood that these are poetic passages, that it is poetry that God is using to communicate a certain salient point. More about this a little later. Interpretation of the Bible, I think I've pretty much answered that. The biblical compilation is a work of literature. It can be read and understood as literature. It has narrative flow. It follows a historic pattern. It goes from the beginning to the end. The Quran does not. Understand the Bible in that way, not in the Quranic way. The Quran is a mechanical recitation of the words from the mouth of God to the Prophet Muhammad. And already I've pointed out about almost 10 different ways that the Prophet Muhammad himself interpreted that mechanical recitation. Not sure that your point can be made based on a Quranic filter. You try to avoid Unitarian tension by pointing out that God doesn't need anyone to express love. He does need to express forgiveness, making him contingent upon his creation. You didn't answer that point. You confused it. You confused the terms loving and forgiving. Forgiveness is an act of love, but it is not love itself. Nowhere in the Quran is God, Allah, called love. God is love. God is the loving, indicating an action, but he isn't the definition of love. Christianity, God is the definition of love. Read 1 Corinthians 13. You attempt to align my point of view with your own, stating that I believe that God hates sinners. I don't agree. And by taking Psalm 5:5 and 11:5 fully out of context, you confuse and obfuscate that point. More debate craft. Do me a favor. Please do not apply the 99 names of of Allah, to Jesus, or to the Holy Spirit, or to the Father. The 99 names of Allah are His eternal attributes, according to your faith. Don't apply the standards that apply to your faith to mine. Keep them separate. Totally different theologies. Let's move on to the extra information in the Quran. How do you know that information is accurate? You're not allowed to question your own faith. You're not allowed to question the origins of your Quran. You're not allowed to question these things. Over and over again, whenever I ask these questions about the historicity of the Quran, I'm called a blasphemer. I'm just asking where you got it. I'm asking where it came from. I ask the same questions of the Quran that I ask of the Bible. Why not apply the same standards to both works? 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Test all things. All things. Now that is a global statement. You can apply globalization to that statement and not be engaging in debate craft. The final point you make, where you accuse me of using context as an excuse, which it's not. Context is everything. You allude to other religions being corruptions of Islam. That's a pretty big assertion, and you provided absolutely no evidence. Nothing. No third-party attestation. Let me point something out to you. The New Testament is a primary source for the life of Jesus. It is multiply attested by third-party sources that are not in the biblical compilation. Tertullian, Justin Martyr, Josephus. There are many others. I could go on with these third-party sources. The manuscript evidence for the New Testament alone makes it a reliable text that's used by both historians and archaeologists. The Quran, unfortunately, is not that authoritative in the academic world. Lots of ways to argue around that. More debate craft. I'm not interested in debate craft. I'm interested in truth. I'm interested in evidence. I'm not an empiricist by any stretch, but I do like to see someone who makes an assertion back it up. I don't see the evidence. The sources that I cited, the second Targum of Esther, the Gospel for the Infancy of Jesus, these are works which predate the Quran. They come before the Quran. And yet they're stories from these works that appear nearly verbatim, nearly word for word, in the Quran. This is the type of criticism that I want to see applied to the Quran. We've been doing it to the Bible for well nigh 2,000 years now. And if the Quran is going to stand or fall, it should stand or fall based on the same standards we're applying to everybody else. Please, once again, understand, I don't want to engage in debate craft. That being the case, this wouldn't be about a search for truth. This would be about who is the better debater. And that's it. You've already got Shabir Ali, you've already got Zakir Naik, you've already got Jamal Badawi. You've got these gentlemen that are doing that. They're engaging in debate craft. Two of the gentlemen I mentioned are lawyers. I'd rather not have somebody who is a lawyer defending my faith. I'd rather have academic, refereed, peer-reviewed works on the historicity of the Bible, on the historicity of the person and life of Jesus. I'm almost out of time. I do wish you peace, I wish you joy, and I hope that you will join me in a search for truth rather than simple debate craft. Thanks for your time, huh?